Alrighty, and we're gonna start recording this now. Unfortunately, we're not gonna be live on Facebook because of some minor technical issues, which had nothing to do with me whatsoever, I assure you. In the meantime, we're listening to a little bit of me on the live radio while waiting for Miss Stephnie Watson, who's gonna be running for the election, the upcoming election here. So, should be in 15 minutes or less or so, which means you could be watching me for as much as 15 minutes. Here, listen to some music. You can listen live at www.jessfm.ca. It's backwards, I know, but there you go. These were $30 headphones that I recorded all this on too, I should have you know. So they do peak. There's a video here as well. If I'm not back again, as if nothing really You can watch it on YouTube anytime you'd like. I just got a haircut, so it's not. Oh, maybe. Set this up. Challenge of epic proportions. You're listening to Bohemian Rhapsody, by the way. Where's the camera? Is that it? Yeah, it's the camera. Alright, you're listening to Bohemian Rhapsody, but I've performed it again. There's two of me doing this. So, it's not perfect, but it's alright. I see a little silhouette of a man. Scaramouche, do the fandango, of the lightning. He's just a poor boy from a poor family, sparing his life from this monstrosity. Hello. Easy come, easy go. Will you let me go? Bismillah, no, we will not let you go. Bismillah, we will not let you go. I've got something recording right now. I should probably tell you already, but it's not live. Not at the moment. I was thinking it would probably work best if you had a Facebook if you wanted to use your live feed.
Oh, okay. I do have a Facebook.
Well, I have this lovely stand that'll accommodate any size phone you have. So.
Okay.
But this is the phone that we're going to be listening to. In the meantime, the radio is listening to this. So.
Nice. Although, I think you guys probably have more viewers than I do on mine.
They do. Jesse is actually going to be sharing your feed.
Oh, okay.
So
I'm trying to think, how would we do it from the page? It'd be from the page, right?
Well, there's a couple ways we can do it,
I can't do it from my personal because I locked it down.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's the problem with mine as well, actually, is why I can't post on Facebook with my personal one. I'm recording and I'm going to post it on YouTube, but, so you don't have the ability to post anything then, same as me then, right?
I can to this one.
You can? Perfect, yeah.
Oh,
just
yeah, go live.
Go live,
there
that is perfect. And then once you're live, somebody will pick it up somewhere.
Okay.
Hopefully. Or if not, it'll at least record it. We can share it around
and then
later.
We can do
so,
it.
Yeah. No worries there.
Cool. And then I allow. Describe your what is the show called again?
Infoassault is what I'm calling it. And it's on jessfm.ca. And yeah, that's
There we go, right?
there's another A in assault there, though.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's just watching out for you.
Nothing really
Just, how come that's not coming
It probably won't.
up? Let's see.
Maybe there's a space or something on the page. Yeah.
Okay.
You could tag me though.
Okay, it's it.
Thomas Carpenter is myself. Yeah, the A is just after the S. A-S-S-E-L-T.
Thank you. I can't spell. So
No, absolutely. All good, all good.
And it's yours is
Thomas
right,
Carpenter.
sorry.
Thomas James Arelis Carpenter. There's a page. There's a group.
Thomas.
Well, the group's not my name, but if you want to pull up a seat, you're more than welcome.
Well,
It's
I was gonna say 4 o'clock is pickup time. Is
sure. Sounds great. We can do that.
So,
Yeah, cool. Thomas.
See ya.
James Arelis, or just Arelis Airy. We'll find it. Oops. That's me.
There we go. And then we'll try just.
You could do Info Assault too. Will also work. There's Jess
There we
FM.
go. And
SSAULT. It might not come up. That's all good. Don't worry about it.
no.
Not a huge deal.
Okay.
But yeah, that should be plenty, and that'll get things shared around here, so you can just start it, and then we'll tell people what's going on.
Okay.
Is it already going, or
No, not yet.
no? Oh, perfect. We can set this up.
We should set it up
There,
first.
maybe you want to. It just stretches however you need it to.
I
usually
usually find
put
one
one
that
edge
actually
into-
finds, so I might actually have to take it out of its case.
I can try if you want.
Okay.
Yeah, let's see if it sticks. My case is ginormous as well, but yours is quite large. I have to admit.
It's not as large as some of the Samsungs.
I believe it. The Samsungs are crazy. I've got an iPhone myself, so yeah, that's gonna be
Yeah.
difficult.
But if I can turn it
Yeah.
off, I can do
Huh.
that.
You know what? Totally gonna be worth it. I brought water for you if you like water or whatever. Cause
Oh, I ended up picking up one of those because it's been crazy.
maybe I'll let you do it now that it's out of its case. Cause
Oh, their Motorola X Play is built for
indestructible, eh?
Well, not indestructible, but to at least take a hit.
Nice. That's good. That's good, actually. All right, so we set this up so that it's seeing both of us and possibly here. And then just make sure you're sitting semi-close to the actual microphone so that it
Okay.
actually picks you up. Oh, we've been doing nothing on air for a little bit here. We'll just...
Thanks for joining. My name is Thomas James Arelis Carpenter. You can find me on Facebook, YouTube.
There, that looks about right, right? Excellent.
Clubbers is the best place to find a lover, so the bar is where I
We've been on here for a bit.
Me and my friends at the table doing shots, thinking fast.
All right,
Hi.
we're live here now as well. So, what we're doing, I guess we should probably explain. There's already been a recording going, but my name is Thomas James Arelis Carpenter. We're on the Info Assault live at jessfm.ca. So you can follow along there too and hear us on the radio, www.jessfm.ca. And joining us is Miss Stephnie Watson. So, while we're getting this all prepared here, we can probably, let's get this on live radio as well. We'll make it a real cold intro. Cold intro onto the live radio. Welcome. We are on www.jessfm.ca on the Info Assault. This is our show on Saturdays. And joining us live on the radio is Miss Stephnie Watson. So if you'd like to just say hello to the viewers who cannot currently see us.
Yes. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Absolutely. So this is exciting
Yes, it is.
for a couple of reasons. But right off the bat, you know what I've been noticing?
What have you been?
This bright blue pin on your pink
Yes.
coat. Why don't you start us off with what this bright blue pin on your coat is for?
So this bright blue pin on my coat, it says, "I am running for city council. Tell me your concerns." So
Hey,
yeah.
you know what? I could probably start with something like that. You're running for city council though. That's awesome. Have you
Yes.
ever done anything like that?
No.
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 So is
I
it nerve-wracking?
haven't. It's exciting. I usually am pretty involved in the political process, so I tend to go to all the forums and stuff anyways. So I was like, you know what? My schedule's already booked. I'm already kind of planning on attending everything, and a lot of the current major issues are things that I'm experienced with and have solutions or know the people who do have the solutions. So I figured I'd try and give them a voice.
Excellent. That sounds like some really good rationale for running for city council.
Right.
So when we say city council, now our broadcast is international here. We're going to a lot of places. So specifically, we are in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada.
Yes.
Semi-populated area, I guess. Not a small town at all, but
it's an average size city for Canada.
absolutely,
Yeah, we're
just
almost
around
at
100,000.
100,000.
Yeah. So, are you from Lethbridge?
Not originally. I'm actually from Red Deer, Alberta originally, and I lived in Saskatoon for 3 8-month co-ops over the last couple of years as well. So
fantastic.
I've gotten the chance to live in a couple of other parts of Canada, which is really awesome. And but Lethbridge, I've been here for pretty much like the last 15 years, so it's become home. So yeah.
So it's pretty much an institutional place for you to just keep coming back to, no matter where you travel off to. So, you mentioned co-ops.
Yes.
Is that like through the university, the co-op program there?
Yeah,
or?
it was. I did co-ops with Environment Canada doing precipitation analysis with Environment Canada off of the group that works out of the University of Saskatchewan there. And it was a really great experience. I got to work in like plus 30 weather and minus 40. So
Well, you definitely need to experience the range of weather to get the different types of precipitation, I'd wager. So, like I currently go to the university as well, and I enrolled in the co-op program, although I didn't actually do any of it. But my sister did. She went internationally. And you mentioned that you were working with people from Saskatchewan.
Yes.
Where did you go?
where did I go?
Yeah.
So I actually got lucked out and got the co-op through a professor of mine at the university who used to be roommates with the researcher that I was working under. So it kind of worked out. So that's where it's really beneficial to get to know your supervisors and professors at the university and stuff, right? Like we're very lucky that the University of Lethbridge has a lower student population. So we actually get to know our professors and the other people that work at the university. And that really helps us start our networking for being able to enter into the job.
Fantastic. So I guess the key thing that I would take out of that is that you should definitely make the connections early while you are at the university, because these are the people that you're going to be working with, and
they will be your colleagues. So,
absolutely. Now, you mentioned small class size. I've taken all types of classes there as well. One of the things that I definitely did notice is as you advanced, past like the entry level Psych 1000 class with 400 people in it. Once you get into an actual class, there is only about 30 or 40 kids in there.
Yeah.
And did you find that particularly useful when you were going to school?
Yeah, I did. So I did my undergrad from about 2002 to 2007. I think is the span fully for that. So I actually even had classes down to around 10 people in a class. So that was really beneficial because you got to actually do projects instead of just exams.
What was your undergrad in?
Environmental science.
Environmental science. Okay, so I assume you passed.
Yes.
Good. So you're very aware of all types of environmental science and things like that, and anything that would relate to it, I would assume.
Yes.
Precipitation specifically and its impact on things.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about Lethbridge? Because we got some crazy weather here.
We do have crazy weather here, and it's actually really cool. So Lethbridge is in a semi-arid area, right? So droughts are not an uncommon thing around here. We are also kind of on the upper edge of where we'll see a lot of tornado activity and stuff too. So it's not uncommon to see funnel clouds in the summer and the turbulent thunderstorms and everything like that, especially since we're close to the mountain ranges, right?
We're going to get everything.
Yeah, so it's really awesome living down here because you get the high winds as well, which really dry things out. So we're also starting to get those back here with the fall coming in, right? And it also means though that we are more susceptible to fires. Stuff dries out when you don't have regular precipitation, as we have unfortunately seen with the Waterton fires and stuff. They can spread really quickly with the higher winds, and so there's just lots of different things in the way everything feeds into each other too.
Well, there is a natural way that things progress in an area like this, and fires are one of the natural things. And then we've come up with some relative defenses against that, things like digging or lighting barrier fires and
Yes,
things to
yeah.
prevent fires from moving. But that would probably also have an effect on the environment,
Yes,
I
it
would
does.
imagine.
Yeah.
What can you tell us about how, say, the coulees or other environments would be affected by the changes that we're making, or what changes do you think should or shouldn't happen?
Right. So, like the changes that we're making and stuff with the increase of people and building and urban sprawl and stuff is that then what we're seeing is there's not as much land that naturally absorbs the precipitation when we do get it, right? So
Concrete isn't very good at that,
concrete is
right?
not good at that. It's
Alright.
not porous. It likes to just like let
Sit
it
and pool
sit and
and-
pool or run off, right? So with that comes a whole bunch of other issues. So we'll end up having like this we get surface flooding here in Lethbridge, right?
we do.
So there's that to consider. You also have to consider all the chemicals and everything that are on our pavements and sidewalks and roadways that and even in our yards and lawns, that when we get like these rainstorms and stuff and have the runoff, all of that ends up back into our river as well. And we're actually kind of near the top of the beginning of our water resources, right? Like we're the first major city that really hits and uses the water for Old Man. And there's like the ones up still, but we're one of the larger users. And we still have to pass that water on to communities in Saskatchewan and Manitoba until it gets to the Hudson Bay. So
You should probably keep it clean then.
we want to like minimize our effect as much as possible.
Now, something that a couple of people that I've met at least have noticed, or had noticed rather, was there was a bunch of foaming water in the Old Man River. Is that what, I mean, I came up with a couple of theories, but they're just theories. I have no idea. I probably could have looked into it, but you would probably know a little bit better. What do you think?
So I do know that a couple of friends actually took pictures and videos while they were out hiking of like the streams
It was
up in
weird.
the castle area and stuff
it's
that was
right
foaming.
up right beside the coulees, by the bridge areas, and you're like, what is this?
What is this? What is
Yeah.
that? So it could be a number of things, and I'd like to just say right now, once again, this is not my area of research. I just happen
Theories.
to have a couple of theories based off of having like touched on a couple of these things in
Semi-professional experience.
Semi-professional experience. It could be a couple of things. There is natural occurring foams and stuff, not to the size that we're seeing though. We do have a lot of natural chemicals that are in our waters, and that needs to be taken into consideration as well. However, we also have a lot of human impact happening. So we are like, a lot of us like to go camping and hiking, right? We like to use soap.
Very true. Too much lye or something.
Yeah, and stuff like that. And unfortunately, people don't always necessarily look at what's in their soaps when they take them hiking and camping and all this other stuff. And it goes into our water system. So then when you have a high, fast runoff, it creates the suds and...
Makes sense.
you
Pools
have
in certain
the
areas.
Pools in certain areas. So
That could totally make sense.
there is a bit of that. Also, if you're living not inside an urban center but outside, you have sometimes a septic, not so much a tank but a field, and that can lead to some issues there as well. As with everything, everything's cumulative, so it's never just one thing that's usually the source or the problem.
Very true.
So yeah, but I don't know if Thomas Porter is doing a documentary called The Water Balance Equation right now.
have no idea.
He's a student out of the University of Lethbridge as well.
Excellent.
And he's been filming stuff and trying to understand the water that's happening in the headwaters here. And I don't know if he'll be touching on that or not, but he will definitely be having scientists interviewed during that, and those scientists would be good ones to follow to find out, and they might have the answers as well.
So I guess continuing on with running for city council in Lethbridge here, we've kind of looked at some of the issues that Lethbridge experiences, just generally speaking. We do have a lot of environmental things that happen. What aspects of the city would you like to focus on as a city councillor?
So as a city councillor, my background right now, as some may know or not know, is I'm doing my master's in environmental science at the university currently. And for the last 3 years, I've been studying Lethbridge transit. So transit is a big issue here in Lethbridge. We do have a small population that is spread out with only pretty much one bridge that the buses can run over.
That's true.
It takes, for those who do not know about the transit, to go from one end of town to another up to an hour and 30 minutes, give or take. this is a huge problem for a lot of people. We know who our demographics are who use transit. It's unfortunately the people who can't afford vehicles or aren't able to drive a vehicle for whatever reason. It's students and it's the seniors. So we're seeing with that, though, our ridership is still kind of stagnated, if not reducing, and it's because it's high fare costs.
Yeah.
So this has to be dealt with. It's not, and there's lots of talk about student passes and stuff, and yes, it would be great to have more affordable student passes, but we also have to be looking at the adults who use transit as well. You have to look at their social economic situations, and a lot of those people, they're not driving for a reason, so they also can't afford high fare bus passes either.
Right.
So we need to be really looking at potentially changing how we are using the fare part of our transit system. It doesn't really cover a lot of the cost of the operations of transit, so I think we need to be revisiting that and looking at how we can better fund our transit system, as well as make sure that it is not a time suck. Because a lot of us who use transit, and yes, I'm one of them, I try and use it when I can.
Your time is worth something.
It's worth something. I know I can't afford 3 hours out of the day. That's 3 hours away from my thesis or working or job hunting or, you know.
There and back.
And back.
I rode the bus myself for like several years, like 10 years, or the city bus.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. So I think transit is the biggest issue we have right now, and it affects a lot of other people too, because if we had an efficient transit system and one that was more affordable, people would be able to get ahead as well, because they'd be able to save more money, they'd be able to get around and perhaps have more jobs in areas that would pay them better, kind of thing, because they might be limited to where they're living and only looking for jobs nearby that the bus only takes half an hour for them to get by, right? So there's lots of different impacts that way.
So it sounds like if I could pull out one of the solutions that you highlighted, it would be spending the fare better. Like we're not putting the money into the right places, we're not allocating it properly, it's not getting distributed. However, how do you see it as being currently used, and what do you think would be better?
So right now what it is a lot of tax money that goes in and grant money that goes into paying for transit. Transit's budget's, I believe, around $9.9 million a year right now. I think there may be, if I remember the numbers correctly, so please go double check them.
No, absolutely.
Don't take this
always double check your sources.
Yeah.
Check many sources. Check all your numbers and multi-fact check. And there's no such thing as fake news. There's just lots of news.
Yeah, so. And misinformation.
Yeah. Check your stuff.
So I think if I remember correctly, it was like around 1.1 million was coming in from fares, right?
Okay.
So we're obviously not paying for our transit system through the money collected from the people who are riding transit, right? So why, I guess the question becomes, why are we doing the 1.1, right? So
we collect $1.1 million. What does it cost to run a
9.9?
Okay, so there's like an $8 million gap that the taxpayers aren't paying for. That
the taxpayers are paying.
They are paying.
Right.
So we as citizens are paying that extra $8 million.
Along with there is other things coming in, like the grant monies and money from other levels of government and stuff like that. But in the end, all that money comes from all of us anyways.
Absolutely.
Right? So I think we need to be looking at other systems that are taking place in and around the world and considering implementing them here in Lethbridge.
What have you seen? What do you like?
I am a bit of a fan of the no fare transit systems, where you don't have a fare to ride the transit systems. It's paid for through various other types of funding. There's lots of different ways to take that up.
No, that's totally true.
But I think it's something that could be investigated.
Public transportation, just as a concept, is designed to be cheap transportation for the people who can't afford it. So a free, fair transit system would be totally a logical thing to do.
And I think we would also then encourage the people who could afford to not take transit to also use transit, because they should
would
be
have
using
an
it
option.
as well.
Why not? One of the projects that I did at the university centered around carbon tax.
Yes.
And as a default to that, obviously a huge portion was public transportation.
Yeah.
So I got a pretty good taste for what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And one of the increased expenses is that carbon tax. Like that's a huge chunk, because the bus companies go, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to add it onto your bus fare, and that's the end of that. Now, then to counter that, there was about $6 billion that's allocated for, and you can check on the alberta.ca/climate, but it's allocated for public transportation, things like buses.
Yeah.
So now I'm hearing it's going to cost $8 million a year to run the fourth biggest city in Alberta. And there's
9.9.
9.9
total.
9.9.
Yeah.
Well, let's round it up to 10.
Yeah, let's go with 10.
$10 billion per year to run the fourth biggest city. So, and there's $6 billion that get collected. Why can't we make this free using the money they've already collected?
Right, like, and this is kind of the thing, right? And I mean, that's a yearly cost. And also we'd want to look at increasing times, and because here's the other thing is buses end at 11 p.m. in the evening, right? Safeway closes at 11:30 p.m.
11 p.m.
The university library closes at 11 p.m. So you have a lot of people who use transit who
Missed that last
if
one.
they miss the last bus, what do they do?
Yeah, I've seen that quite a few times.
So even talking to some friends who actually run businesses and have to create the time schedules for employees, they're seeing issues with this as well, where they want a better transit system because they need their employees to work their hours, but at the same time their employees can't work those hours because transportation costs too much, right? Like you're not going to take a 3-hour shift if your entire 3-hour shift is going to be used up by cab or Uber to get home. It's just not
that's
economical.
3 out of 8 hours. It doesn't make any sense. So that is seeing as that's obviously a concern in Lethbridge here. Do you know what, population-wise, we said there's about 100,000 people that live in Lethbridge. Do you know how many people use the public transportation system?
So currently, based off of the numbers I've crunched for my thesis, we're looking at about 20%, but I think that's actually less than that because my numbers is based off of the bus passes sold, so it doesn't count for the people who bought multiple bus passes.
Yeah, if you ever lost one or whatever.
Yeah, kind of thing. So I would say it's actually less than that, but
so between 15 and 20% might be accurate.
Yeah, kind of thing. And out of that, your highest users right now are your adults and your cash users, and we don't know who our cash users are. Our cash users are actually a spectrum of everyone,
impossible
right?
to get them all.
Yeah, and stuff. So they're a mixture of the adults, the students, the seniors. Another concern is our low-income families who can't afford necessarily to have their own transportation, end up having to buy a used car or something that's always breaking down and causing costs. Because to have a family try and ride transit is just not feasible. Just 2 adult passes and 2 child passes over the age of 5, you're looking at over $350 a month.
As soon as you get to those type of numbers, you might as well buy it.
Right.
Just buy something and drive it. Honestly.
And I mean, then that becomes a money suck for those families because the type of vehicle you're buying for that amount of money.
Yeah, no matter which way you slice it, it's not going to work out well.
No, right?
But.
So, I mean, this is where it would be really beneficial and help the city as a whole, I believe, if we actually had cheaper passes, or no passes, or we really need to seriously be taking those types of things into consideration.
What do you think about programs like Access-a-Ride?
I think they're wonderful and great. They definitely allow mobility to those who otherwise find that challenging. We need to be able to make that more affordable as well, because it is the people who do have the money who can still use it once again. There are a couple of programs, I believe, in place that do help subsidize and pay for that, but there's a lot of people who also can't afford it that need to be able to. I know Lethbridge Transit is working really hard to try and make their regular buses as accessible as possible as well, which is very important as well, but we also still will always need an Access-a-Ride.
Fair enough. Do you think if they just provided more Access-a-Rides, would that be kind of like an Uber type establishment, but with specific pick up groups of people, drop them off groups of people type of thing, a cross section between buses and taxis?
Yeah, I think we definitely need that. So I don't know if you ever were around when the buses were dial-a-bus.
I recall seeing the. I remember the thing,
Right.
but I never used it. But I do
Yeah.
remember the thing.
So it used to be like, and I'm also kind of like, I was on that bridge of where I was starting to be old enough to use the bus, but not quite using it. And I remember there was, and I think I like got to use the dial-a-bus for a year before it was taken out.
Right.
And it was wonderful. So what it was is the buses in the later hours or on Sundays would follow their main routes that you always knew you generally would have people on. But then you could dial a bus and they would tell you, okay, in 20 minutes, we will be by the stop that you are closest to. And so they'd come off that route and come and pick you up and stuff, right? So
I mean, it sounds
there's
logistically
options.
it would have been a little bit more difficult back in the day because of the lack of technology and things like
Yes.
that. But since then, I've literally seen every taxi in the world now has an iPad right on the display. I'm sure buses must have the same thing
Yeah.
now. And it wouldn't be that difficult now, would it?
No.
You would literally have it come up on your screen what route to just follow because a phone call came in.
yeah,
And it would automatically pre-program how much longer it's going to take you.
yeah.
I mean, these are definite options.
They
here.
are definite options. And I mean, this is definitely going to be one of those things that would cost money initially. And we have to find ways to find that funding. But when you look at it long term, I think our city would actually reap the benefits of that a lot more.
I hear this carbon tax has a lot of money to give out to stuff like this.
Right.
I think that if they can't say yes to a great idea like this, that would make a lot of sense. I would totally be down with that. That would be
Right.
awesome. Honestly, I don't see why somebody would pay for a more expensive taxi as opposed to a less expensive but just as efficient
Right.
form of public
Yeah,
transportation.
and one of those things is we definitely have to bring that ridership time across town down. We need to be getting it in more into the hour in kind of
45
range.
minutes. Yeah, 45 minutes to an hour. That seems
range.
reasonable
Yeah.
to get somebody across the city public transportation because
Yeah.
we don't have bad traffic.
No,
It's decent.
and I mean it's never going to be as good as your own personal vehicle.
Of course.
But
15 minutes there and back.
you know. But and then another thing that we need to be considering when we say dealing with the transit is we need to be considering the cyclists and the pedestrians as well.
It
And
needs to be safe for them.
It needs to be safe for them. We need to be creating better bicycle lanes and better pathways and stuff like that within our planning as we plan as a city and redevelop areas that are older and stuff. So that all ties in together because when you start making these connections and tie these routes and everything together, people will use it.
So here's something that you may or may not have known that you can definitely compare personally. You've been to a whole bunch of other cities, a whole bunch of other places. You've seen how their public transportation works and their bike systems and whatnot, and you've probably seen how their roads are laid out. Lethbridge, in comparison to most southern Alberta cities, has really wide, straight roads downtown. And are you aware of the reason for that compared to other cities?
I know it was told to me once in my urban planning class, but
Back in the day when they originally settled here, the guy that designed the roads was actually a surveyor. The original, I believe it was the original. Actually, you know what? Go back to episode 1 of the Info Assault, because episode 2. Episode 2 with David Carpenter. He explains it on that one. But yeah, originally Lethbridge had an actual surveyor come and survey all the roads, which is why we have such nice straight roads to work with, and why we can still redevelop all the time, and it still works out throughout the ages. So nice little thing there.
I think that's also a great example of when you have someone who actually the background in a planning stage,
It's
you actually
really
get things
important.
where they actually think long term, and we need to be thinking long term. We need to be thinking, can this work 50 years down the road? Can this work 100 years down the road and stuff? So
It's a great example. And obviously, we've got the basic infrastructure to make this work.
Oh, yes.
Now we just need to do it again with technology involved and things like that, put the right people in the right places. So now there's you must have other things you're interested in other than the buses. Tell me about more things. Let's talk.
Okay, so one of the other things I do, and I was actually on Rachel's Jess FM show a while ago, is that I volunteer for Lethbridge Area Search and Rescue.
Oh, fun.
So that takes up a lot of time, and it's a lot of fun.
Do you work with puppies?
I don't work with the puppies. There are the search dogs, and they have their handlers, so we will work with them in conjunction for a search.
Search dogs are puppies.
Yes, they are. And then I have my own personal puppy.
Good.
Who originally
Good.
I was training for that, but unfortunately we just didn't have the time to
It's
stay
tough
with it.
to really do a lot of
is.
training, for sure. I have a puppy as well.
Yeah.
I love puppies.
The
Puppies
fun
are
thing
great.
is my last name's Watson, right? My dog's name's Sherlock.
Nice.
So, yeah.
No, that's great. So, search and rescue. What
Yes.
you don't use the search puppies. What do you do?
So I'm part of the basic land search and rescue group kind of thing. So what we do is Lethbridge City Police, the city themselves, the RCMP, parks, and I think any of the other, I can't remember the other emergency services, can call and task us out. So we're 24/7 volunteers. My cell phone is always on because we might get a call.
Could be
right?
anything, right?
So basically we're trained to search for missing people. However, we also help with evidence searches, and we are starting to train in how we can be of assistance during city emergencies and stuff like that too.
Fantastic. How
We've
many of you are there?
Oh, I can't remember. I think we have, I want to say 30 active members. Right
30
now.
volunteers silently working to protect you.
So,
If you get lost, they will find you.
yeah, and we actually have a recruitment night coming up in, is it October or November? I can't remember. But if you check
It
out
is
our
October or November.
Yeah, it's coming up soon. It is on our
Search
Facebook
and rescue though.
page.
Search and rescue.
Lethbridge and Area Search
and
and
Area.
Rescue
Yeah.
Facebook page
Do
has
that.
the info. So if it's something you think you might be interested in, you should totally check it out. We are always looking for more dedicated volunteers. It is,
And they have puppies.
and there's puppies. They're
Yeah, how can puppies, right? That's,
and bicycles. Yeah,
and bicycles.
we actually are starting a junction search group, and I think we're looking at trying to expand to ATV as well. And
Ooh, I have a controversial question for you then.
Okay.
Okay, I love walking in the coulees with my dog. I've done it ever since I was little. You know, I was born and raised here. I've done that, and I've seen the coulees since I was little. They were different. They were more coolie-ish. And now there were signs and whatnot posted. It's like, these are walking trails.
Yep.
These are bike trails. But the distinction between the two has been completely lost, and it would appear through the double trails with tire tracks that some people believe motorized vehicles are also appropriate now. I do not appreciate people with their bicycles and motorized vehicles all over my coulees, because that wrecks them, and they break real easy. What do you think about that?
Okay, so yeah, that is a difficult situation. I mean, even just walking has an impact in our coulees as well, right? It does cause erosion issues. So we have erosion issues from the hikers, we have erosion issues from the cyclists, we have erosion issues from the motorists. So we need to be working together to create paths that are suitable and stuff and made for those situations. We may even have to look at limiting things in certain areas so that we are protecting our natural resources, because our natural resources, as much as people don't fully understand, are saving us a lot of money. So in the spring, when our water sources, do you guys remember that we almost went to emergency water boiling advisory?
Yeah.
Because of
Droughts,
the sediment
we couldn't
into
drink
the
the
thing.
water.
We couldn't drink the
The water treatment
because
plant
of
was
the amount of
overloaded,
sediment
and
coming in because of the runoff. Those types of things, our natural areas help reduce the sediment runoff.
like plants and things, they're
yeah.
really good at not causing erosion. So.
I mean, to play devil's advocate, you could always be the person that's like, you know what, I don't care, I'll just pay for it, and stuff.
Can't
And then,
really pay for
well,
coolies, right?
you can't pay for coolies, but you could pay for a better water treatment plant.
You can pay
that
for a better
would
water treatment
filter
plant.
out the sediment and stuff
You know
like
what?
that. But
I
do we want to
fully
do that
encourage you
when
to
our
pay for
natural
more.
areas can do it, right?
Well, you shouldn't need to,
So,
really. But aside from that, there are designated places currently
Yes.
where you can go.
Yeah.
You know, there's dirt paths which deer's made,
Yes.
and if a person walked on a deer path, it probably wouldn't do too much. If you start getting a pack of bicycles going down the same path, suddenly you've got a rut that's
Yeah.
causing water,
Yeah.
and it doesn't work
Well,
so
and
great.
even the walking does too. Like, I was up in the Castle Mountain area and did a hike this summer, and I mean, the only people up there were hikers, and
Yeah.
you do see that it has like worn down, like it was like that deep in
Of
from the
course. I
hikers.
mean, over years and
does
years,
help.
it will
It does,
happen.
right?
Absolutely.
It's just over. Yeah. So once
can
again, it's
speed it
coming
up or
back to
slow
the
it down either
cumulative
way,
effects
right?
management, right? So we're like, so what do we do? And this is the problem too, is our population sizes are increasing, so we're seeing more of those cumulative effects happening, and we've gotten to that tipping point where we have to start managing for them.
We're going to have to do something
Yeah.
one way or another, because
So-
if you let all paths become ATV, then, well, they're
Yeah.
just going to go wherever they want.
Yeah.
And
So we need to be working as a community. We have to make sure that we're leaving open spaces where people from all different groups can come and have a safe conversation and not feel threatened to express their opinions. Because when we can listen to everyone, we can actually come to solutions that will be beneficial to everyone. I mean, maybe it's partly also going to the creators of the ATVs and putting in regulations, or maybe asking them to find ways that their tires and stuff aren't churning up the dirt as much, right? Like, I mean, it's less grip and stuff, but I mean, right, give and take. So,
I'm pretty sure it's a city bylaw. You can't use a motorized vehicle in the coulees.
well,
so
there's a lot of those little kid ones though, right?
motorized vehicles, you
Yeah.
can't use them in the coulees. It is a city bylaw.
Yeah.
So, but what else? What kind of a forum would you like to open up for people to express themselves? Because obviously that's going to be your slogan, is tell me your concerns. How are you going to get people to tell you their concerns? How are they going to approach you?
Well, hopefully, I mean, a lot of people usually already open up to me pretty easily once we can start a conversation, right? I'm a pretty open person, pretty accepting. I will mostly 98% of the time not bite your head off for having a differing opinion. There's always that 2% chance of you pick me on a bad day.
You can't agree with everybody. You can't agree with everybody.
Well, and I'll never agree with everybody, but that's the point, is we're never all going to agree.
Absolutely.
Right?
That's essential to understand.
Yeah. But that does not mean that we can't be respectful to each other and that we can't find a solution. It might take a little longer. It might mean bringing in some more other people with differing perspectives so that we could actually think of something that maybe we haven't thought of yet, right? So, and I think that's where we really need to be focusing on in the future with like our politicians and with the things that we're funding and stuff, is do we have a diverse enough crowd to be able to get the most out of what we have and the knowledge we have today? Because we are in an information age, and it's wonderful.
It is very true. So diversity, I mean, that can be taken a lot of ways. And generally speaking, people say the word diversity and they consider it a good thing innately. Like, you want diversity, you want to include everybody's views, and everybody should be allowed to speak their mind and should have a seat at the table, proverbially, or whatever you'd like to call it. So with that in mind, I'm going to take a little bit of a detour and see how this goes. What do you think about Nazis in Charlottesville?
Okay, so yeah, with that. So once again, there's the whole freedom of speech thing, right? So
It is a difficult one.
It is a difficult one. However, what a lot of people don't understand either is freedom of speech does not guarantee that there will not be repercussions for your behavior.
Absolutely. You are
And
responsible for what you say.
You are responsible for what you say. This does not mean that that gives privilege to other people to create another violence or other things. However, if you're taking an opinion that is completely wrong in this day and age, then you have to expect that you're going to be facing a lot of opposition, as you should.
Good.
So.
Well, congratulations. You have just met a large portion of opposition. I run a group on Facebook with about 120,000 people on it called I Hate Donald Trump. So there's definitely going to be some people that would wholeheartedly agree with that position that are watching currently.
Yes.
Speaking of Trump, I love hearing people's opinions on Trump, either good or bad. I love hearing them. What do you think about Trump?
Trump.
Let's describe him. He's influential.
Let's describe his influence. Yes. I guess It does show that we do have a true, in a way, democratic process in North America.
There
Right.
is a process.
There is a process.
You should look up the Electoral College if you think it's democratic.
You should look it up and stuff. I'm glad that we have like a different system here in Canada.
A more democratic system, perhaps some would say.
If our voter population would show up.
Possibly. It has the ability to be.
It has the ability to be. That's another thing. Municipal elections in Canada tend to be highly low voter turnout. I think the last election was around the 28% for Lethbridge.
So it's 1 in 4 people. It's
Yeah.
pretty low.
That's really low. You know, we would really like to see that increase, or at least I would like to see that increase.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that, because I think I'd like to know a bit more. We can gauge pretty clearly that we've got similar views on Trump.
I think we do, yeah.
He's not a good person. So,
It is getting people engaged, though.
It is getting people engaged. But in the city of Lethbridge, you said 28%. That's low.
That is
what is
eligible voters.
eligible voters?
Yeah.
So what is the prerequisite to become an eligible voter?
It's actually really simple. It's on the lethbridge.ca website.
Lethbridge.ca.
If you go there, they have a banner that says Vote Lethbridge. You click on
Lethbridge.
it. Actually, can we bring that up there?
Oh,
and
yeah,
then we're
actually,
reading it,
totally
and then
can.
we're reading it off exactly as it is,
We will not be wrong.
so that we're not providing misinformation, and we're all clear.
There is no misinformation here.
No information. So click here to learn.
Click here to. Oh, it's the great big one in the yellow. I see, right in the
Yeah,
middle. Right
yeah.
in the middle.
Information for voters.
Information for voters, top left, where you'd expect it, in the middle.
Yeah.
And
And
election
voter
day
eligibility.
is Monday, October 16th.
And advanced polls start next Saturday
All right. So
30th.
what voters need to know?
for eligibility.
Voter eligibility. So you are an eligible voter if you are at least 18 years old, you are a Canadian citizen, you have resided in Alberta for at least 6 consecutive months immediately preceding Election Day, are a resident of the city on Election Day, and can provide authorized identification. So basically, if you live here and you took more than 2 semesters in a row, your vote.
Yeah.
And I mean, let me put this in perspective for students here. There's 28% of people in Lethbridge that are eligible to vote. Student population is about 10,000.
It is.
There's
It's
only
quite
about
high.
100,000 people that live here.
Yeah.
Seriously, if all of the students got together and went, hey, we're going to pick all of the city's representation and then left, you could. It'd be freaking crazy. Like,
Well, there is a bit of stipulation, so you can see here on the site it says post-secondary student. So
You should go check it out
students,
either way.
You need to check this out anyways. Know your rights when you are voting, because
Yeah.
some people might challenge you on them when you go
They're
to
listed.
the voter station.
They're listed.
They're listed. So always know your rights, know what you have, and if you are eligible, get out and vote.
It's true.
So there is a student forum next Thursday at the Student Union.
What date is that? That is
The 28th, is it?
next
Yes.
Thursday. Looks like the 28th. The
Yeah.
28th, yes.
Yeah, and I think that starts at 7, I want to say, but I can't remember. But the list is also on the webpage, or lethbridgeaccountability.ca, and they also sent us out a survey that has 42 questions we have to answer.
Oh, that'll be fun.
42. Yeah, and they'll be posting all of our answers on September 30th, I believe. So it's a good way to get to know your reps.
I'm here for as long as you want, but
So,
this is what time it is.
oh, is it? Oh, I had it scheduled till 4:30 anyway.
Oh, perfect. Well,
So
then let's
we're
keep
good.
chatting.
Let's
This is
keep
great.
chatting. We're
Okay.
good.
Hey, somebody liked that. Well, yeah, no, I was going to shut it down
bored
like right
everyone.
now. I'm
We
like, it's
haven't bored
4:02.
everyone yet.
No,
That's
your guys
good.
are done. But no, we'll keep going for a little bit here. So, let's see. Vote.
Yes.
Voting is important. Voting is important in all elections, especially if you care.
I would
about
appreciate the
things.
votes for myself. However, if you do not feel that your views I represent, then please inform yourself as to which candidates do and vote for them.
That is an excellent point. If let's say somebody's watching this, let's say one of the several people that are watching this right
Yeah.
now decide, hey, I'm interested, where can they go to learn more about you?
So I have my webpage, which is watsonforcouncil.ca.
WATSONFORCOUNCIL.com.
Sorry, com. I think I said CA, but it's com. Sorry.
.com. We'll
I
just make
use the
sure
free
this
Wix because I'm a student and on a budget. So
makes sense to me.
yeah. I'm running my campaign on less than $200. You should check out how much the others are paying.
But definitely
Same.
more. Definitely
Yeah.
more. All right.
So I have it's coming together. I'll be updating it as I get more questions answered. I'll be actually posting the questionnaires and my answers to them. It just takes me a bit of time.
So we've got your platform here. You've got lots of specific things to talk about, and definitely go check it out is the point. So the website again here is www.watsonforcouncil.com, watsonforcouncil.com.
And I also have
check her
a
out.
Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And on my webpage, you can connect to my LinkedIn profile as well. So I always figure as a person running for council, it's a job interview, right?
It is.
So why would I not share my resume so
Absolutely.
you can see
It's
my work
necessary.
history?
It's necessary.
Yeah.
You gotta, and there's a number posted as well, which I find is very. You have to be able to get in communication with people.
Yes.
So that's awesome.
Yeah. I'm averaging about, depending on what the question is, trying to get to responses within 2 days. So
Yeah, she might be out busy rescuing people.
maybe it's a possibility. I am on call. I did not take this time off from the search and rescue group.
So if the live broadcast suddenly goes into ringing and she grabs the phone and starts running, that's why.
We're usually not that things. It's always there's a staging setup and everything too.
Fair
So
enough.
yeah, but I'm not like the emergency police and fire. We're not like have to get out and go kind of as quickly as that. But
It's like once you can't find somebody, it's like, all right, we need some help to find these people.
yeah.
Like,
So that's when we come in, and so we usually try to be at our drop spot within the time frame given within the call.
so do you ever do like those search grid type things?
Yes, we do.
And like walk like a foot beside each other or whatever? And
Yep. Yeah,
Excellent.
we do those. We do those for a lot of evidence searches because we're looking for small items. So we even practice this one where we're actually on our hands and knees and combing through the grass, right? So it all depends on what we're looking for and stuff. So
Makes sense.
yeah.
So maybe let's get back to city a bit more.
Yes.
What have we spoken about? We talked a little bit about the environment around here. We talked about city transit being a big deal. What other issues do you see as important? I mean, we've identified that about 15 to 20% of the people ride the city bus. So what's important to the other 80%, or what else is?
Yeah. I think, like, I know this isn't a hot topic, but it's one that I think we really need to be looking at and focusing on is emergency preparedness. We have one bridge and then one provincial bridge, so we have two technically, but most of our population is on the southern ends of both the east and the west. So if something was to happen to Whoop Up and Highway 3 and then, a fire came in at the same time, there's a whole bunch of issues around that. And that's kind of where we need to be seriously looking at that third bridge. We have the population that's coming up. Bridges are not planned overnight and built overnight. They do take decades sometimes to build and place. Especially in ecological fragile areas, which is what the southern part of our cities are. So this is something that we need to be considering for accessibility and stuff. And it should be multi-purpose. Once again, it should be completely pedestrian and bicycle friendly. I think if we had more bridges that way, it would definitely help with that. When I was living in Saskatoon, the city of the bridges, as most people will know if you've been to Saskatoon, people are always biking and walking even in like -30 weather, and it's because it's so easy to do, right? So whereas when you live on the west side and have to work on the southeast side,
It's not quite plausible.
it's not quite plausible, or the same with the north, right? And not everyone is fortunate enough to live close to where they work either, or can afford to live close to where they work. So it's things to consider. I would really like to get a city app or something going for emergencies. We have the Alberta Emergency app, which is great, but has its glitches. Sometimes you get the warnings after the event has occurred.
I've actually there is something called 50 radio,
There is.
which you can download that, and that's, I mean, you're going to be listening to a lot of nothing most of the time, but if something ever happens, you'll know about it.
Right,
But
and there
it's-
is that. But like we need to be investigating how we alert our city as a whole to something that is happening, whether it's major accidents that have shut down Whoop Up to and Highway 3, like it happened was that last year? Or was that a little more than last year?
There's accidents all the time.
Yeah, there's accidents, but there was the one that had Whoop Up and Highway 3 because there was accidents that happened
both
at the
of them.
same time.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep,
I do remember that one. Yeah,
Mhm.
and we had like traffic backed up for hours. Well, there's people who had to get across and couldn't get across, and that creates their own emergencies. And I find like our communication seems to be lacking, and I'm not sure exactly why or where the break is happening, but I think we could do a better job on finding ways to get information out to people. It is a trickier situation because unlike our grandparents and even our parents' age groups where they always had a radio on in the house so that they would hear stuff, or the TV and stuff, we aren't necessarily connected that way.
Well, that's a great example. Even this radio station, we are broadcasting over an online radio, and we are also broadcasting live on Facebook. And even still, not a single person in their car, unless they're actually on the internet, will be listening to us right now.
There's that. And then, like, I don't have cable. I don't
Neither
even
do I.
have Peasant Vision anymore because they kind of got rid of that, right? So I'm on Netflix. There's no way for information to cut into Netflix at the moment. If the internet goes down and the cell towers go down, I don't even have a landline, right? So,
It's very true.
and a lot of people are like that now. So then the question becomes, how do we alert people when something is happening? How do we get information out when something is happening? And I do think it is in people's minds and stuff, but we haven't really had the pressure to have to do it. And I'd rather we did it now instead of in a situation.
So here's an interesting prospect. I know that even if your phone is locked and you can't unlock the phone, you can still swipe up and you can
Yes.
emergency dial.
You can.
Now, why can't we do that backwards?
That's a good question. I think there is ways to do that from the techie world. I occasionally get these messages because I have a lot of techie nerd friends, which I appreciate because they fill my newsfeed with interesting information.
I know that one, even if you're out of cell range,
It is.
that one even works. Which
Yeah.
is, I don't know how it
Well,
works.
it's kind of like how our 911 blanket works, right? Like even though we're out of cell phone range, we're still in an emergency, right? So there are
so
ways.
the infrastructure does exist.
It exists. We just
technically,
have
but
to make sure it's working properly, right?
people want to see
right.
your shining
Sorry,
face.
I was leaning back while I was thinking. It's a thing.
You're allowed, but just turn this way a bit.
There we go. But I'm just thinking it's, yeah, we need to be exploring and investigating better ways of communications and making sure that we're communicating as best as we can with the newest technologies and stuff as they become available. It's something we always need to be revisiting and revising. So.
Now, I know that it seems like the major issue that keeps coming up is we can't communicate, and if we can't communicate, we won't be able to transport each other to where we need to get to, and that can cause a lot of huge issues.
Yeah.
And the immediate solution that everybody thinks of, well, build another bridge, and that seems to make sense. But there's a lot of other types of transportation technologies that are emerging right now.
There is.
Like just some crazy stuff out there that you wouldn't even consider, like wire guided transportation lifts or whatever, and like
Gondolas?
and drones even, and all kinds of like crazy flight and stuff like that. Do you think that we should bother going in that direction at all right now?
I don't think we're in. I don't think we know enough of the direction that those technologies are going yet. However, I think those need to be considered when we're planning our larger projects. So, for example, the new sports complex right on the west side there, people have been like, well, why aren't there solar panels on it? Solar panels are cheap. Why, it's a new building, why is this stuff not there? There's a lot of different reasons from what I've heard for that. But if you think about it, think of when the planning started for that. Think of when they had to get the information
At the time,
and
they didn't
the
have solar
bids.
panels to do that.
They
That
had the
was-
solar panels, but they were expensive. They weren't working as well. They came like hugely more
They have improved a ton since back in the day.
better,
for sure.
yeah. So there's that type of thing. The question would then be, so to me the question isn't why don't we have solar panels out there? It's more of was the building built to handle solar power
At the
so
time,
that we
did
could
it work?
right?
It's-
So that would be my question. And if that was the question, why wasn't the building thought to have built so that solar panel could be added in at a later date as the technology evolved, right? So I think that's what we need to be investigating with when we're having these bigger projects and planning 20, 30, 10 years down the road. What possible technologies are coming that we should be considering, even though it might not be possible for us to add it at the time that we're building in 20 years and stuff, right?
Right.
But making sure that we're designing our stuff that it could be added
Be
to.
possible later.
Yeah, so that we're not having a building that can't necessarily be
It's just
brought
kind
up
of
to date.
stuck and can't be gentrified at all. And
Right.
so, what types of energy do you think we should be focusing on? I obviously you've mentioned solar power quite a few times. Is that a direction you think that we should be going?
We should be considering everything. I don't think we should ever concentrate on just one type of energy. It's always going to be a mixture of energy. And when I say that, I don't necessarily mean that we always have to include oil and gas. I think eventually we will be moving away from those. But you are going to want to have a combination of wind and solar and geothermal and potentially other options as our technology and as we as humans learn about different options comes available. So
I've heard I've obviously it's inevitable that we're going to stop using oil and gas at some point, and we're going to have to use other things that are more efficient and less damaging to us and won't kill us quite as much, because humans kind of like existing, I hear. So if you want to exist, you should start thinking about not using so much of that. But some of the methods that we've got currently involve some not so great practices, like solar panels, for instance. You gotta do some serious harm to the environment to make a solar panel, and I've heard that if you calculated all of the benefit that a solar panel would give compared to everything it costs to make it and destroy it, you could have bought a 4-banger car and it would have been about as bad. And what do you think about things like that, where it doesn't look like you've pretty much reached solar panel? This type of solar panel is just not gonna ever be not damaging.
Yeah, so that's always going to be for anything that we're doing. We're always going to have an impact no matter what we choose to do. So we do have to be looking at these, what you're talking about is the cradle to grave analyses. And that's
Very
where you
important.
take into consideration, okay, what's the processes of actually getting all the materials together to do this? What happens during the lifespan of this material? And then how do you dispose of it? And what are all the processes of disposing it? I think there are a lot of challenges right now, but that also creates a lot of jobs and research opportunities as well. And to me, that's not a reason to stop looking at trying to improve things. You might want to hold off and wait a little bit to see if there's solutions before you go implementing on huge scales. But I think that's also part of our problem is we always want to implement everything on a huge scale. And
we don't know what's going to happen at that point.
And we don't know what's going to happen at that point, but why do we have to implement everything at a huge scale?
Yeah, just try it out for a bit and see how it goes.
Right, but we also have to actually be willing to try it. There's so much of this, oh, well, such and such is already this and that, but we won't know until we actually try it. So to be able to do that, we have to have cities and we have to have groups of people that are willing to experiment and allow things to be tried and tested. And then when we allow that, we see these huge takeoffs and explosions of creativity and solutions, right?
Speaking of explosions, nuclear power.
Yeah.
Nuclear power. I know that in the city of Lethbridge, we cannot use it. There's been legislation of some sort which prevents us from utilizing it in any capacity for warfare or for our own benefit. However, personally, I believe that there's been some incredible advances in technology, and there will be further. And if we don't want to keep digging up, lithium and making batteries, we're going to be moving to some sort of chemical reaction, some type of nuclear, hydrogen, whatever. It's going to be a dangerous thing, but that is the direction we're going to need to go to supply the needs that we have without continuing to kill everything around us. What do you think about that?
Yeah, nuclear, it's a tough one. Because as long as everything's going hunky-dory, it's generally pretty safe, right? But it's one of those things that when something goes wrong, it goes wrong, and it goes wrong badly. And there's also still the waste issues of nuclear. I haven't really looked into it in the last 5 years, so I don't know how much progress has been made on how to deal with the waste of nuclear. I know we're still dealing with issues of waste from generations past of nuclear.
We are, when we didn't know what we were doing.
Exactly. So once again, that's one of those ones that you would really want to be really careful about before
I agree.
You go. But we need to be considering all aspects and looking to the science and the research. But the problem with the science and the research is, and this is why it's always important to have government funded research as well, is that we have to be asking the right questions too, right?
Well, it's precisely, it's almost like the solar panel issue. The immediate response, solar panels are great. Yes, everybody get a solar panel. And yes, for the reasons you're saying they're great, they are great. However, the cradle,
Yeah, we have to look at that. And you know what? There might still be solutions out there for that. And as we become aware of the problems, we can try and solve them. But if we're not willing to ask the hard questions, or we're creating this environment of negativity around exploring new things, then we're never going to make progress.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
And we're going to keep spinning our wheels. We're going to keep being in economic slumps. We're going to keep with all of this other stuff, right? So we need to be creative. We need to be supportive of the creativeness, but we also need to be responsible, and we need to make sure that we're doing our best and doing our due diligence too.
Excellent. So let's look at more of a larger scale of the city then. You mentioned economics, and obviously your concern would be taking care of the city's economics as a whole, or trying to improve said. Do you have any things that you'd like to implement, or policies or practices or procedures or courses or anything else that would have the effect of increasing economic performance in the city?
Yeah, so economics. I think the really cool thing about Lethbridge is that we are very diverse within our economic situation. It's how we've weathered the bus cycles as well as we have. It's also how we've weathered the agriculture bus as well. So we're quite diverse, but I think there's more that we can be doing. One of the things that always surprises me is that we aren't really going after recruiting companies and stuff like that here, that we could funnel our students from the universities and college into in regards to data processing and scientific research. And those are the biggest job markets right now. The ones that are looking to hire are the data analysts and stuff. And that's for all fields, like your math students, your science students, your sociological students, like all of them at some point are doing some type of data analysis.
Everybody's using it.
Right, there's lots of different companies. You don't have to be going after the giant companies for this, right? But it would be really great to see more companies like that and trying to attract more companies like that here. The other benefit to that too is those types of companies don't take up a lot of resources. They don't require large amounts of water. They don't require large amounts of land necessarily, right? So I think we need to be looking into those types of businesses and stuff. We also have to be supporting our local small businesses. We have to find better ways to support them through their permitting processes and educational processes of business within Lethbridge. We have to be cutting the red tape. We need to, just try and work with them a bit more to figure out how we can help them, because small businesses do keep the money within the city.
Very true.
Right? So at the same time, we're limited to an extent because of the way our legal system works and competition, fair competition, if you want to call it that, and stuff with the bigger box stores and stuff like that. However, also box stores still employ people that live here. So
It's true.
It's a juggling act, but I think we could do a lot better to help our small businesses. I think we need to be, I think downtown has come a long way in the last 10 years that I've been here. Last 15 years, it was a little creepy when I first moved here, I'll admit. But there's, like, I think and it seems to, what we've done in downtown seems to have really worked, and I think we need to keep going with it, but now we need to expand it. We need to expand it to the Upper East Side business areas and the North Side business areas.
So one of the things that I've noticed distinctly, I managed a store downtown for 5 years, and we did great, but what's happened is there's a whole lot of art buildings around. They're very pretty. There's a lot of cultural centers, things like that, and presumably that's what people would identify as the major changes to the downtown area. Is look at these brand new buildings, art buildings, essentially. Now, personally, I don't necessarily think we need as many as we do down here. I've used them, and I walk into them, and there's virtually nobody in them. They're these giant, very nice buildings, but they're not being used. Do you think that that's what caused the changes in the downtown? And would you recommend doing that same type of thing? Or what else would you recommend as opposed to that if that's not what caused it?
I think it had a huge part of it. I know myself that I'm down here a lot using those buildings and attending functions that are being held in those buildings. However, I also know that I'm down here a lot because there's a lot of local small businesses and restaurants that I like. So
Absolutely,
I think it's been a mixture of all of the above. The art stuff, we've seen a huge amount of it in the last little bit because it was lacking for so long, and arts is a hugely important thing to the city of Lethbridge. We have an amazing faculty over at the university, and there's faculties over in the college as well, and we have, like, it creates jobs as well, right? So arts isn't
Well, I guess I'm wondering what jobs got created. I see a guy at the front desk.
Yep.
But that, like, I even took voice lessons at one of them.
Right.
But they could have done them just as easily at all the faculties at the university too, and they would have been, in fact, closer and probably nicer to my house.
Yeah.
So
At the same time, the university is also very full already.
It is,
right?
it is.
I mean, I have a free gym pass to the university. Well, free in that is I have to pay for it in my student thing.
I would never use it.
But it's always booked whenever I'm free to use it for the athletics and stuff at the university. So the university is already very busy. We needed areas that were open to the public and available to the public as well. They cost a lot of money to do, and the thing is they can seem and appear empty at times, and part of that is because they've also, I think, been planned for the future capacity as well. Right?
That makes a lot of sense too, you know.
So,
looking forward into the future, hopefully the downtown continues to be the downtown, and maybe it gets busier.
And I think when you have your arts and cultural centers downtown, that helps keep it alive and vibrant downtown. Now for the Upper East Side and North Side, I think we need to be working on some more business stuff there, but making it more pedestrian friendly, more hospitable. Like we definitely need nicer redoing of the roads and stuff like that. I mean, a big part of the issues that we still have with downtown and Upper East Side and North is we do have a large segment of homelessness and addicts and stuff, and we need to be having the social programs in place to be able to help with this situation. And these people, they need our help. We need to destigmatize them and stuff and stop seeing them as not being people, and we need to find ways that will work for them and stuff, so that they feel a part of our community, and because they are a part of our community.
Absolutely.
And I think that would also help out a lot. So there's this amazing program that actually just started in January, I believe, where a TP is put up in Galt Gardens every other Friday. And
Sweet.
I'm not sure of what cycle every Friday is, but I've been meaning to try and get down to it. And it was one of their police officers who set it up, brought in his own teepee, because they did
possibly Sergeant Smallbones.
yeah, I think that might be his name.
It might have been. He's in charge of the small crimes unit, I believe, last time I checked.
Okay,
But
I'm horrible with names, so I forget him. He's a very nice man, though. So he set it up because they had done a survey that had identified that many of the homeless feel like they don't belong anywhere. So when you don't feel like you belong anywhere, you have this disconnect and all this other things, right? So he's created this thing with McDonald's that provides food and stuff, and everyone's welcome to come. It's not just for the homeless people and stuff. And they do trust exercises, and they do like information stuff, and they're creating this sense of belonging. And I think that's extremely important, and I think we need to be like focusing in on stuff like that as well.
Absolutely. So Medicine Hat, being our closest, largest city, other than Calgary, obviously, but they got rid of homelessness. They eliminated it completely. Why don't we do what they did?
So I've heard there's some other things happening with Medicine Hat now with that project and stuff. But that is definitely something that we need to be listening to. So for example, there's a couple of other people running for city council whose this is their wheelhouse. This is where their research, their careers have been in, and those are the people we need to be listening to on this type of a situation, right? So I mean, I'm all for supporting stuff that would help people and would help programs and things that would make our community a better place as a whole. But I would totally be deferring to them for the information on whether a project or plan is actually viable or useful, because they are the ones that would have the experience, and they would have the knowledge to provide the information needed to make that type of decision.
That makes a lot of sense. Well, since we're closing in at about 4:30, why don't we give a brief summary about who we are, what we're doing, what we've been. I mean, we spoke for a long time, and anybody who just joined in the middle would have no idea what's happening here. So as a summary, right now we're on jessfm.ca live on the radio. Here's the microphone, and joining us today, my name is Thomas James Arelis Carpenter, and we had Miss Stephnie Watson, who is running for City Council for Lethbridge in Southern Alberta. And so I will let you self-describe how you would like to close off your own video for your own advertising for yourself.
Okay, self-describe, that's a good question. Basically, I'm here to be people's voice. What I can offer is a background of knowing how to collect data, analyze data, and bring a rational thought process to the decision-making in City Hall. As a counselor, I understand the political processes. I've worked both provincially and federally, and I am really interested in making Lethbridge to be a continuously fabulous place that it is. So.
Excellent. Well, that is just fantastic. And like we were mentioning earlier, you can check out more about Stephnie at watsonforcouncil.com. If I remember that right. Yes, perfect. It is catchy enough to be rememberable. So with that, thank you so much for listening.
Great.
And we're going to log off of this one first, the live. Goodbye, live feed. We are still live on the radio for the moment here. So, radio people, we are going to give you some music. We are going to be putting on a rendition of Bad Company by yours truly and some other guy that joined me. So hopefully that turns out okay, and we'll be back in a minute.